Welcome to Team Peri's Step Out of Line podcast, featuring co-hosts Peri and Lori Finkelstein. Together, they explore, meet, and share inspirational stories with guests who have made a positive impact in today's world. This podcast resonates with our hope to make this world a better place one step at a time through love, acceptance, and uplifting conversations.
I actually, of course, like the little education, geek that I am, I went and researched you. And I went through quite the binge fest of the podcast. So I want to say I'm a big podcast listener in general. I love podcasts, but I'd never heard of your podcast before. And I want to say, so honored and humbled to be included with such amazing people. And so then I had like that little moment of imposter syndrome where I'm like, will I have anything interesting to say? I don't know. So I want to say thank you. Oh, and also, who could forget, you guys had Baked by Melissa on, which I lived in New York for 13 years. I love those little cupcakes.
And Peri admires strong women who have just like a go-getter. I asked Peri before we started, I said, what do you like best about Jill? Okay, besides you love benefit and you want every benefit product in the world, what do you like about Jill? What drew you to her? And she said she's a real go-getter. And to me, that's who Peri is. She's a go-getter. And you might look at her and say, what can she accomplish? Or how is she going to do this? And she just manages to get things done that nobody else can do. So she's fierce. I take this from yeah.
For her to call me a go-getter is again pretty amazing and pretty humbling. And I thank you for that. I did do one marathon in my life. I did the New York City Marathon. I didn't run it. I walked it as a tomato. It's a long story, but basically sure. Okay. I was dressed as a tomato. I was an actor at the time, and I was doing a promotion for a company called Walnut Acre Soup. And I was literally an organic tomato walking the marathon. And it was long and hard. And that suit, which was, made pretty lightweight, after, the first 10 miles was very, very intense. So the fact that you do marathons just literally blows my mind. And I'm super, super impressed. And I think I did that one as a tomato, and I just said, yeah, I'm good on that. But I do now walk. Walking has always been a big part of my life. I do now walk the Susan Komen 3 days, which are 60 miles for breast cancer every year. And I used to run as a kid. I don't know if you remember this walk, but the March of Dimes for muscular dystrophy. I used to walk that as a kid. And one time I got to see Donny Osmond, on the walk. It was very exciting for me.
Donny Marie with the fabulous hair. You never heard that? No? The dolls?
Donny Osmond, no. Pink, purple socks, no.
So marathons, we equate marathons really with life. It's so hard while you do it, and you go through so many emotions as you're doing it. And then when you're done, you can't believe you did it, but you're so glad that you did. You're glad it's over, and you can't look at somebody else running for at least 2 weeks. It makes you sick every time you see somebody run. Right. And then you're like, it's like birthing. I can do it again. So we're talking about stepping out of line. And Jill, can you think of any point in your life where you stepped out of line in any way, whether it's your career or personal life?
I've been a big, stepping out of line stepper. Sure. That sounds good. For a long time, and I actually, I remember that wonderful Emmy speech from Alex Bornstein from Marvelous Miss Maisel. And it was such an impactful speech. And as I was thinking about, this podcast and kind of thinking about, okay, what would I say? There's been several times in my life, like I moved to Japan. I lived there for a few years. I lived in Saipan. I've always been involved in acting, all these different things. But what hit me about that story was literally, and again, I would never compare like what I've been through in life to what, Alex Bornstein's grandma had been through. But it is that moment of somebody is saying, okay, this is the way it is, and we want you to just stay here. And then for me, I think what was so impactful about this story is it's the question of, what if I just decided to step out, right? So for me, it was actually about this job. So I used to work for Origins in New York City. I love New York. I feel like a New Yorker, even though I'm really now from California. I'd worked at Origins forever, for 13 years, and I loved it. And I'm a big skincare person. I love skincare. I love people's skin. I love helping people with that. And so I thought that I was just going to retire and die at that company and be like, well, that's my path. And, I love this company. But if you had asked anyone at Origins, hey, is there another company that you would ever go to? I would say, yeah, there's one company, there was one. And, but it's a little company. Nobody knows it. It's out in California. It's in San Francisco. It's just this little like kind of indie brand. And they were like, oh yeah, what is it? And I said, oh yeah, it's called Benefit Cosmetics. And I had been a huge fan since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Peri, you're a fan. You know why you're a fan, right? It's like, it's a fun brand. Like it's really kind of kooky and crazy, and it's beautiful, and it's got great stories. And it was founded by two amazing twins, Jean and Jane Ford, who in 1976, they flipped a coin and they were like, we're going to either do makeup or casseroles. And they chose makeup. Thank goodness. Yeah. You would have chosen casseroles.
Eating food later, be like, okay, she would choose makeup.
I know, exactly. I mean, if they had chosen casseroles, I would be right now slinging the best darn tuna casserole you'd ever have. But so anyway, so I was like, yeah, it's a really small brand. Nobody knows about it, et cetera. So I was on year 13 at Origins. I was a global director of education, which means that anytime that you go into store, anyone who touches you or anyone who works for the brand, if they give you a facial, if they, sell you a product, all of that education background, what they're saying in store has been thought about and implemented and put forth by the education team. It's basically like end-to-end service, right? So one day I got a call from a recruiter in California, and they said, hey, we have this job. We want you to apply for it. And they don't tell you the job at the time. When a recruiter calls, they don't say the name of the job because they don't want you like going after your own, job to like call them up yourself. So I said, okay, cool. You know what? I'm not interested. I'm doing good where I'm at. Thank you. Goodbye. And they're like, oh, so that was the end of that call. Well, 6 months later, I received a call from the same recruiter, and the recruiter said, you know what? I kind of can't stop thinking about you. And, you just had this kind of right energy. And we actually went through and we offered that job that I had asked you about to another person, but then they dropped out for whatever reason. Would you, I know I already asked you, but would you be willing to come in for this job in California? And I said, look, I have to tell you, like, there's only one other brand in the whole world that I want to work for. And they said, okay, what brand is that? And I said, you don't know it. It's called Benefit Cosmetics. Now, this is a while ago, and they were like, what? And I said, yeah, Benefit Cosmetics. I think it's in San Francisco. And they're like, Well, that's the job. Get me that interview and I'll get that job. Now, what's even crazier, there's a whole process that you go through called an assessment center. And what it is, are you guys ready? It's like Survivor. So you're in a room with 5 other women who are interviewing for the same job. And they make you do presentations, and they make you speak, and they make you take a math test, and they make you do a writing test. And you go through this whole experience. It was 8 hours of an interview. Okay. So you go through this whole process, and I could kind of tell because my background is in acting. So, auditioning is not unfamiliar. Like some women were getting kind of tired after hour 10, after hour like 5. And some people were like still, they were still in it, so it was very much like Survivor. It's like you're kind of looking like who's gonna, still be in it, whatever. So fun story, the person who is going to be my boss comes in the middle of, I'm giving a presentation. They had said, prepare this presentation and prepare a how-to presentation, but don't make it about beauty. So I did, my son was 5 at the time. So I did how to read to children. And so I'm sitting there with my book and I'm like holding it up and I'm like reading and, and then for the how-to presentation, you have to turn it over to someone. Well, this man had walked in the middle of my presentation. So I said, I would like him to read it. That was my future boss. I had no idea. So he, does the presentation, he reads it all, etc. And then he leaves. And then they call me the next week and it gets even better. They say, well, you did really well. You were really engaging. We really liked you. We think you're really benefit. You're amazing. You're this, you're that, you're all the things, la, la, la. And they said you scored the highest that anyone scored on the math test, all these things. I was feeling so proud. I was like, yes, I got this job. Yes. I also want to mention the first time I went to benefit, it's like a beautiful Barbie doll house came to life. And the second that I walked in for my interview, I cried. Like I just I knew this was my job. So the woman on the phone says, and I'm like, uh-oh. She says, so you didn't get the job.
Oh.
And I said, but what? I said, excuse me? And I said, okay, can I know why? And she said, well, you're all these great things that she had said. And I'm not just saying that to be egomaniacal. I'm just trying to paint you a picture of like, what's happening here? Why did I not get the job? She said, however, we're just not sure if you're politically savvy enough. And I said, oh. And I said, okay. And I said, let me say this to this woman on the phone. I said, I think you should reconsider. So look, she had just told me I hadn't gotten the job, and I'm literally telling her, you need to reconsider, which is kind of not very politically correct, right? So she's probably right. So I said, look, I am not the most political person in the world, but I did work for Estee Lauder brands, so I do know politics. I can handle it. You could call anyone at Lauder and ask them that. However, I'm not the person that is always just going to say yes, just to be a yes person. I am going to express myself and my opinion. And so I think you need to give me another chance. And they did. And I went through that whole 8-hour day again and got the job. So for me, that just was, as I was thinking, I could have, as I was trying to horribly compare it, it in no way compares at all to Alex Borenstein's grandma's, story. My version of that is this woman said, you didn't get the job. And I should have said, in all intents and purposes, okay, bye.
Right.
But I didn't. And I said, and I even said, look, you can call anyone at Lauder. You can call Jane Lauder. You can go crazy. Call anyone you want and ask them. And they're not going to say I'm the most political person, but they will say a lot of other great things, and they will say that if you want the unvarnished truth, that I'm going to give it to you, whether it's good or bad, it'll be the truth. And so for me, that was a really big moment. And I've been at Benefit Cosmetics now I'm going on my 10th year. And I started off as just the vice president of the US, working for that man that I made read the book in front of everybody. And then from there, I got to be the vice president of the Americas. And then now I'm the senior vice president of education for global benefit, which is really, really cool. When I say it today, I always giggle. I giggle a little bit because when I say senior vice president, I'm like, because it just sounds so crazy.
Peri actually is in an international business class and everything's online at home. So I get to listen to the teacher's lectures at time, and she's learning about, globally what businesses have to do and how they have to adapt to the culture of the host country. Very interesting. I'm sure in educating everybody who is spreading the message of benefit and what you represent and your mission in the stores and locally, you have to take into account so many different things. Do you get to travel as well with your job, or did you before the pandemic?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, I was traveling pretty much every week. So I would, I was domestic, so I would go out and come back and go out and come back. Now, obviously, since the pandemic, I haven't traveled at all. So that was a really big adjustment for sure. And it's been really interesting to be home, but really to learn how to connect in different ways. Right. And Peri, to that point of for international business, we have to take kind of the culture and the idea and the DNA of benefit, and then also let the culture of the country live, in the benefit vein, which is very interesting and very challenging.
I know when we were talking about your products before we came on, because Peri was using some of them, whatever she had, she was using. I don't know if you noticed the full effect. And she said, this brand, I don't know if you realize it when you create the brand, the packaging and the way that everything is done, is that it's very accessible for her. They're not heavy products. She's able to open them up and put on everything herself without assistance. And although you might not think of that when it's being developed, I know she's using it in that way. And that's one of the reasons why she gravitated initially towards the brand. It was an accident. It was pure, kismet luck, but everything is very accessible for her, and it's light and it's easy. Right, it's very easy to open, and you have large and small sizes. You don't just have this big clunky size that she's trying to throw mascara on. It makes it very accessible for her. So I appreciate that. So I don't have to do her makeup. She does all her own makeup, and it makes it a lot easier. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really thank you so much for saying that. And I actually can't wait to pass that along to the head of packaging. I know that would just absolutely thrill him. So thank you so much for saying that. And thank you. And that is definitely a way forward that we need to concentrate on. When it comes to beauty, because people get really loyal about skincare,
right.
What's different about makeup is we're hey, next, next thing. I will tell you, if you do ever fall in love with something at the Lauder Brands actually has a pretty amazing program called Gone But Not Forgotten.
Oh, neat.
And I talk great about other brands all the time because there's enough money for all of us, right? We're all in beauty. We're all making things. We're all excited, to share our wares. So at Lauder, if there's a MAC Cosmetics or Lauder or any of those Lauder brands, if there's something in there that you really love that they discontinued, they have a program called Gone But Not Forgotten, and you just call them up and they'll get it for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Boom.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
But at Benefit, but the difference for us at Benefit is that we're a little lean and mean kind of brand, not mean, but like lean and scrappy.
Right.
And so we live to just have a certain amount of SKUs or product on the shelf, and so once we start to say, in order to make room for something else has to go, because there's a finite number of what can kind of roll in and what can kind of roll out.
Especially during the pandemic, even though things are opening up and like we're putting on makeup for the first time in a long time and feeling like, okay, we have to leave the house and look good finally. Do you find people really are now saying, that's it, we got to move on, we got to look pretty, because to me, makeup is not changing anything about myself. It's making me feel like I can get up and go and feel good about everything. Like I have my face on, I can go. Right. Like it gives you confidence. And I think post-pandemic, I think we all need that. It's not just, I think it's everybody needs to boost their confidence up because we've all been dragged through the mud at this point. So a product that would make you feel better, it's really more psychological than anything else, that you feel amazing when you wear it. Such as like when you're wearing the Team Peri t-shirt, you feel like you can do anything and you can.
Yeah. Yes. So I think that with that, I mean, we at Benefit, we really feel like, well, first of all, our motto is laughter is the best cosmetic, right? And what that means to us is that when a woman is smiling and laughing, she's at her most beautiful. So for us, makeup is really just about an enhancer of that natural beauty. And whether you want to wear it on your eyes or whatever, we did okay. This past year, it was, I think it was hard on most people in makeup because people were at home and they stopped wearing makeup, and that's okay. For us though, we tend to focus on this area here, the brow, the lash, straight through, right? What we're calling above the mask.
Above the mask. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, for us, we were doing okay, which by the way, Peri, let's talk about your brows right now. They look really good.
They look pretty, right?
I hope they do. She's got it going on. I think for sure, the makeup is going to be coming back, and again, everything, since now we're only expressing with our eyes, we need that brow area taken care of and the lashes and all of that. And then I just like to put on a really nice, bold lip that's matte and will just stay all day and doesn't come off on my mask.
She's very fascinated by your rollerblading also. I was more fascinated with your acting skills and the rollerblading. And really, you could tell you're very outwardly gregarious, happy, person that people want to be around. Because I know, like just talking to you right now, I feel like you're a friend across the country that, I wish I had met years ago, and here we are meeting now. But I think the skills that you develop as a child and as a teenager and through college and every facet of your life have led you to where you are now, and which is why you did get the job and why you did deserve it, because you just had that, stamina that you could just stick anybody out and get the job and just say, this is mine and I want it, and you got it. And I love that in a person. I know Peri admires that also. We love strong women who know what they want and they go out and get it. And if they can't get it, then they figure out something else and get that.
Well, I mean, I think there's that saying that goes, Love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. The thing is that what I think about that, and this is something to like think about going forward, is you guys mentioned that you saw that I was roller skating. It's true. I actually roller skate for benefit. I have my own hashtag. It's hashtag roller skating VP, which, check out that hashtag and you'll see some really crazy, funny pictures. But I had this whole musical theater background. And so what I did was I literally brought kind of all of that with me. My experiences in Japan, my experiences, like you kind of just bring, just to your point, Lori, you bring everything with you. And then you bring your whole self to the job. And then you never work a day in your life because you're fully embodying all of the parts of you. Like I said, I love skincare. I love to do facials on people. I love to roller skate. I love to sing. I love to, so really it's about like, don't be shy and don't be afraid to bring all of the parts of you to work into what you do. And then it won't feel like work. Find the job that accepts all of the weird and fun, quirky parts of you too. Find that job that accepts you. And if they don't want the whole thing, then, find something else.